Sige, let us continue. We'll have the allylamines and related compounds. This is still under sa antifungals na to. So let's discuss first their mechanism of action. If you know their their classification, most likely isa lang sila o mechanism of action tanan. Ha? Isa ka classification, isang mechanism of action. Again, let me remind you, though pareha silang mechanism of action, ang ilahang difference is on their pharmacokinetic profile. So, iba-iba sila o half-life, duration of action, the time, the Tmax or the time na mag-reach og maximum na plasma concentration kana. Iba-iba ang time sa ilahang absorption and ang ilahang route of excretion also iba-iba. So most likely sa pharmacokinetic profile. Pero sa pag-abot sa pharmacodynamics, and that's the mechanism of action, parehas lang sila. Isang group, isang mechanism of action. Now, for the allylamines and related compounds, they have this mechanism of action, which is the inhibition of an enzyme called squalene epoxidase, which is an enzyme that is important in the synthesis of ergosterol in fungi. So, remember, diba, last time I have mentioned na in the cell membrane of the fungi, they have there the ergosterol, which is a lipid that gives its membrane integrity. So, para dili mag-leak and gawas outside ang whatever is inside their cell, they need this lipid, which is called ergosterol. So again, when you give allylamines, the target is the squalene epoxidase, an enzyme. Kung tanawon nato class ang iyahang pathway, this is the pathway of ergosterol formation in fungi. So just like sa cholesterol, this will start with the acetyl coenzyme A. Nahimo siya HMG-CoA. So, sa tao class, i-discuss po nato na siya ha, kasi this is almost the same. Sa tao, it's just that ergosterol lang ang sa fungi, sa ato cholesterol. So, the mevalonic acid, and then we have the squalene here. So, after the mevalonic acid, you have the squalene, and then you need, the fungi need the squalene epoxidase to convert it to squalene 2,3 epoxide, para mahimo siyang lanosterol, and so on, hangtod mahimo siya og ergosterol. So the target of allylamines and the thiocarbamates is this, inhibit ni siya na enzyme, leading to the accumulation of squalene in their cell membrane, but they don't have the ergosterol anymore, and that will lead also to the destabilization of the fungal membrane. So pag dili na destabilize na ang fungal membrane, there will be leaking of all the inside component of the fungi. So mamatay siya. So ang ending gihapon is the death of the fungus. So you need to be familiar with this pathway sa pagbuhat og ergosterol. Nalay mga uban later i-discuss gihapon ako kay kaning dire like kay azole antifungal. Mag-discuss po tag-azole antifungal later. So dinha gihapon ang iyang mechanism of action, but it's different to allylamines kasi dito man sa squalene epoxidase si allylamine. Si azole is more on the 14 alpha demethylase na enzyme. So what are the examples of our allylamines? We have the naphthene. This is available in cream, 1% na cream, and actually gel also. So this is for topical application sa mga tinea infections nato. So example sa mga tinea infection, we have the athlete's foot and the jack itch. That's tinea pedis and tinea cruris. So again, this is a topical preparation. Another topical preparation is the terbinafine. You can encounter this sa pharmacy. We have the Lamisil. So pwede niyo siya paliton. Though supposedly this is an OTC drug, but you know, in the Philippines, pwede na siya paliton. But if you can encounter Lamisil, this is an antifungal agent used for different types of tinea infections. And then we have the tolnaftate. Please take note that this is not an allylamine. Ang structure niya is not the same with those two na na-mention, but they have the same mechanism of action. That is why giuban na lang siya sa isa ka grupo. That is why giana siya. Itawag na lang siya allylamines and other related compounds. So, tolnaftate naman is placed sa mga like artificial na fingernail kasi di ba we have the tinea unguium or the onychomycosis, the fungal infection sa nails. So, ibutang siya sa mga artificial nail as an antifungal agent. And then, isulod siya dire sa nail bed para to prevent or to counteract the activity of the ringworm sa nail beds. So, ano ang gamit ni tolnaftate? So, those are the, we only have 3 for the allylamines and related compounds. We have naftifine, terbinafine, and tolnaftate. This is not an allylamine again, but it has the same mechanism of action, which is the inhibition of the squalene epoxidase. So, para walay ergosterol na ma-form. Now, let's move on sa azole antifungal agents. These are the most common na mga antifungal agents, and I believe you are familiar with them. So, azole, their names end with azole dyan. So, ang antifungal spectrum nila, that is why ang reason nga nung most common sila kasi they can be used for tinea infections or superficial na mga infections both sa skin and sa mucous membrane. And at the same time, they can also be used to treat systemic na mycosis. So, broad ang iyahang spectrum in terms sa list sa mga fungi na pwede niya tambalan. So, both superficial and systemic na mga infections. Now, I have mentioned sa inyo a while ago na still the azole antifungal targets the synthesis of ergosterol. So this time, it's another enzyme. We call it C14 demethylase. That enzyme is important for the demethylation of lanosterol para mahimo siyang ergosterol. But sadly, when you make this, when you use this azole antifungal, it will be inhibited, leading to the decrease in the synthesis of ergosterol sa fungi. And then there will be destabilization also of their cell membrane, making it leak or permeable na pwede na siya masudlan o any other substance kasi mag-leak na siya without the ergosterol. So going back to the pathway, we have here again, this will start with the acetyl coenzyme A, and take note of this part. After the squalene, you have there, mahimo na siya og lanosterol. So supposedly, lanosterol will have a series of demethylation and other na mga processes. But when you administer azole antifungals, this will inhibit the C14 demethylase, this part here. And then si lanosterol will not be converted into ergosterol anymore. So maani siya ang mechanism of action sa ato ang mga azole antifungals. Now, let's look at the structure-activity relationship or the SAR. When you hear the word, the abbreviation SAR, it refers to the structure-activity relationship. So it tells you which part of the structure of the drug is responsible for its activity. So for the case of the azole antifungal, the basic requirement for it to become an azole antifungal is the presence of a weakly basic imidazole or 1,2,4-triazole ring. So this is the basic requirement, this one. This is a 1,2,4-triazole ring. So you have 3 nitrogens there. Again, 1,2,4-triazole ring. That's the one responsible for the activity of our azole antifungal. That is the one that will inhibit the the enzyme, the C14 demethylase enzyme in converting lanosterol to ergosterol. And another thing that you have to take note when it comes to the structure of our azole antifungal is that the most potent na mga azole antifungals actually possess either 2 or 3 aromatic rings or the benzene rings. Para maging potent siya, dapat na siya at least 2 or 3 aromatic rings. So when you look at the structures of some important azole antifungal, you will see there the imidazole ring or the 1,2,4-triazole ring. So like this, the clotrimazole. You have here the 1,2,4-triazole ring, and then siya additional 3 benzene rings, which makes it a potent azole antifungal. So that is also true for econazole. You still have here the 1,2,4-triazole ring, but it only has 2 additional benzene rings. So the most common azole antifungal is the ketoconazole. What's the brand name of ketoconazole in the market, class? Amoy hatag, I believe you are familiar.
Nizoral, ma'am.
Ketoconazole. Yes, that is correct. Nizoral. So Nizoral ang pinaka-common na ketoconazole sa market. So if you look at its structure, since this is an azole antifungal, so definitely naana siya triazole ring din. No, the acetatis is a combination drug. If I'm not mistaken, the acetatis is corticosteroid na siya. Let me see. That is actually not, what do you call that? Permitted here sa Philippines, ang acetatis. So you cannot see that na inside the pharmacy. Minsan na maligyan acetatis, di ba ang kanang mga inchik-inchik na tindahan. Tama ba? How do you spell acetatis? Acetatis. Well, let me see. It's not kasi it's not an azole antifungal. I believe it's a corticosteroid. Yeah, I'm correct. It's a corticosteroid. Fluosinonide. Let me write it sa screen. Para dili ninyo siya ma-confuse with the azole. Sorry, I was disconnected. Sige ulit. Let me write sa screen para dili ninyo siya ma-confuse ha. Acetatis is not sorry. Hindi na siya legal diri sa Philippines. So it's fluosinonide. Fluosinonide, this is class a corticosteroid. So definitely this is, pwede siya sa allergy, pwede siya sa inflammation. But acetatis is not used as an antifungal. Ha? Hindi siya antifungal. Kay corticosteroid ang iyahang generic name. Pero again, let me remind you that this is not like notified or wala ni siya FDA permit or license. That is why you cannot see it sa mga pharmacy. You can only buy acetatis sa mga inchik-inchik na mga stores. Okay? Dili siya antifungal ha. So you don't use acetatis to tinea infections. If you have tinea infections, you can use either of the following. So you have ketoconazole. So this is a potent one. May 2 rings, then siya additional benzene rings. Inalagay siya sa pimples. Kita nagingon nga ibutang siya sa pimples. Is that a practice? I'm not familiar hanga ginabutang siya sa pimples. Ang nabalaan ako pag may mga allergy, mga rashes, katol-katol, I know na ginagamit si acetatis, but sa pimples, as in, that is just an anti-inflam. So it might treat the inflammation kasi ang pimples inflammation man na. Pero the causative agent will not die. Kasi dili siya antibacterial. So you still have the staphylococcus aureus there. Mubalhin ra na siya dugar. Kawa siya namatay. Pero nawala tong original na inflammation. Inflammation man gihapon ng pimples. So pwede gihapon siya effective when it comes to the inflammation, but not sa pagpatay sa causative agent. So balhin-balhin lang atong pimples, anak class, pagkakapoy, mudaghan sila. Mudaghan ang part nga naa kay like scar sa pimples. Okay, so please tell your pabalihog kong ingon sa imong kaila, you can explain that sa layman's term. Sige. And then we have itraconazole, damiconazole, and Enilconazole, parconazole, and the fluconazole here. Ang inyong tandaan, the basic requirement is this one, the triazole ring. And for it to become potent, it has to have additional 2 or 3 benzene rings. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the clotrimazole. What's the brand name? I mean, Lotrimin and the Mysilex are brand names of clotrimazole, but we have like kanang common jud na clotrimazole sa market. I cannot remember the brand name. Let me see. I can't. The Canesten. Yeah, the Canesten sa mukha. Wala siya kung ginaingon nga. I'm not really good with the brand name since so ako nagpuyo sa pharmacy class ng mga mga community pharmacies na tahag na sila. Okay? So you're familiar with Canesten, right? Pero may na gina-advertise ang Canesten, no? It's, class? It's clotrimazole. It is under the azole antifungals. So, pwede siya gamiton class for tinea infections. So, if you have like ringworms, mga tinea pedis, tinea cruris, purpuris, any forms of tinea, you can use the clotrimazole. The most common na akong nabalaan is the Canesten. Aside from that, it can also be used for candidiasis. Superficial na candidiasis. Kaya naatay systemic na candidiasis. So when you say superficial candidiasis, it's the vulvovaginal candidiasis ha sa mga babae. So we have the cream, 1% na vaginal cream of clotrimazole, and actually naapod tay tablet, 100 milligrams and 500 milligrams for vulvovaginal candidiasis. Okay? And then this one is extremely stable. So unlike mga common drugs nato na ang ilahang expiration date is up to 2 or 3 years, clotrimazole, as it is very stable, it can reach even 5 years. Stable gihapon siya. Questions about clotrimazole, class? Wala? So pag mga fungal infection, mga azole antifungal ha, not the acetates, not the other antibacterial na mga creams, kani ato ang mga antifungal. So and then we have the econazole, which is also given topically for tinea infections. The butoconazole also, which is more commonly used for vaginal candidiasis. So naatay cream for this, vaginal candidiasis. Kano sa mag-vaginal candidiasis ang babae? Pwede siya because of stress. So kapag you are very stressed man good, you will have low immune system. So since Candida albicans is an opportunistic na fungi, so kung babae mo hang immune system, pwede siya mag-cause of candidiasis. So this one is very itchy and you have a discharge na murag pastillas. Kaon man tag pastillas, no? Ng gatas nga sticky. So inga na ang mahimong discharge sa candidiasis. Yes, Jessa. That's okay, Jessa. That's okay. So again, yung ana ha, ang discharge sa candidiasis, and then that's very itchy class. So that's number 1, stress. Over. Para lang og pastillas ang Para ang pastillas ang discharge. So the next time with pastillas, you think about vaginal candidiasis. Nice man na. And then number 2, stress na number 1, no? So number 2, number 2 kapag masobraan og antibiotic. Kasi sa vagina sa babae, we have normal flora and one of that is the candida. And then, ang kauban sa candida sa vagina sa babae, mga other bacteria. bacteria. So if mag-inom ka og mga antibacterial agent labi nagmasubraan ka, mamatay man gud ang mga bacteria sa vagina pero not the candida because candida is a fungi. So di siya mamatay. Now pag wala namang gud siya ka-competition sa iyang environment, so pwede na siya mahimong opportunistic. So mo nang dili pud pwede na masobraan tag antibiotic, pwede siya mauwi sa candidiasis. And then another one, mostly mga buntis na babae, usahay magkaroon sila og kanang candidiasis. So maybe because sa immune system daghan og factor. Dami yung pastillas, dami magyapon ng pastillas class. And then we have the sulconazole, another topically given na azole antifungal for tinea infection. So any tinea infections class. And then we have oxyconazole also. So aside from sa cream na apod tayo lotion for this, sa mga fungal infection kaya magbilog-bilog sa lawas class na ringworm, tinea corporis. So sa high lotionan na lang siya no, kanang antifungal. Pakatakod ha. So for example ni tinea corporis ang someone kasi kaghiram og sinina niya, takdan jud ka. Okay, kay ano man ni fungal infection. So makatakod. And then we have thioconazole, another one na ginagamit for vulvovaginal candidiasis. So dili na kay nako sila isa-isahon kasi all you need to know is kung para ba siya sa tinea or sa superficial na mycosis or para siya sa systemic. And then another thing, pwede naman na to isahon ng iyang mechanism of action. And then we have the miconazole, the monistat or the micastin sa market. Pwede siya for tinea infections and candidiasis. But it can also be used. So this one, the miconazole, is for both tinea infections and systemic infections. But we have problems pag gamiton nato siya as treatment for systemic mycosis because it can cause thrombophlebitis. So kung i-administer nato siya IV intravenously, it can cause na maghubag ang imong blood vessel labi na dito sa sa injection site. We call it thrombophlebitis. And then pruritus, that's a form of allergy, katol-katol, no? Fever, and gastrointestinal upset. Mo lang atong problema with using miconazole for systemic infections. And then the most common antifungal agent is the ketoconazole. The most common brand also in the market is the Nizoral. So this one is very common because it is a very broad na in terms of spectrum na antifungal agent. So pwede siya i-administer orally for systemic infection. So pwede lang siya dili i-inject but pwede siya via the oral route. Now what's our problem with ketoconazole class? No, this is not an over-the-counter drug. Supposedly, kung mag-pharmacist na mo class, dili dyan siya over-the-counter drugs. Tanan class nga tambal nato for infections, whether it is bacterial infection, viral, fungal, protozoal na infection, ano ni sila? Prescription drugs. Dili ni sila over-the-counter. So, nga lang tayo problem with kanang sa dispensing sa culture karon kay medyo ginahatag pud siya bisag walay prescription. Okay? So what's our problem with ketoconazole? Pag gamiton nato siya for systemic infection, it will inhibit androgen and adrenal steroid synthesis. So mostly sa mga lalaki, ma-inhibit ang pag-synthesize sa ilahang hormone. That is why naani siya side effect na gynecomastia. Are you familiar with gynecomastia?
Dili jud, ma'am. Dili jud. Wala jud ko kailana.
How about the others? Any idea about gynecomastia? Aside from the decreased libido, impotence sa mga lalaki and para sa mga babae, there will be menstrual irregularities kasi magkaroon ng hormonal imbalance. Na-effect si ketoconazole sa hormones, especially sa mga lalaki. So when you say class gynecomastia, ano siya, madako ang boobs sa mga lalaki. Mga lalaki ha, muda ko ilang boobs kay magkaroon man sila og imbalance kay na-inhibit ang synthesis sa ilahang androgens. Nakuha. Pero ang problem is mostly sa mga nagagynecomastya dili pantay. Like isa lang kabuok part, isa lang kabuok na breast ang magdako. Ano siya, dili siya pantay. Tama, dili siya pantay. So, do not ever use this. Kaya na yung mga like members sa LGBT no na nagapadako sila og boobs. Naga-hormonal therapy na sila pero never use this one. Though ketoconazole has effects sa hormone pero dili na to siya gamiton ha kasi dili man para didto ang iyahang effect. So lahi lang ilahang inumon. Though that is very painful for them. Basta nagagynecomastya na ang mga members sa LGBT kay naga-hormonal therapy sila. That is very painful. So remember girls, tong napastart pa lang nag-increase ato ang breast size, diba? That is painful for us. So maupod na ilahang ma-experience pag naga-hormonal therapy sila. So, wala ko rin ingon na muda ko ang isa katutoy kay react mo. Ingon na naman ninyo guwantoy sa mukha. Again, gynecomastia, that's the increase in the breast size because of the effect of ketoconazole sa hormone sa lalaki. So aside from that, there will be syempre decrease in libido kasi nahilabtan ang hormone. Potence for some. And for girls, we'll have menstrual irregularity. Now, another board exam question. Nagpa-check up ka. So, okay. That is normal, girls. Kada mga nagadalaga, good mood ako ang breast. Ano, normal, nagasakit. Sakit siya. Okay, another board exam question for ketoconazole class. Naan niya siya drug-to-food interaction. So, na-mention na to last time na drug-to-drug interaction. This time, drug-to-food interaction. Si ketoconazole is mutaas ang iyahang absorption rate if you will take this concomitantly with acidic foods. So, isabay siya. Pag mag-inom kag ketoconazole, kaon pug kag mga acidic foods like citrus na mga fruits para mataas ang absorption ni ketoconazole. Okay? Questions, class? Wala. So aside sa ginagamit nato siya for systemic mycosis, si ketoconazole ginagamit po siya for tinea infection. So mga superficial na mga mycosis. So both systemic and tinea infection. So pwede siya for candidiasis, pwede siya candidiasis sa baba or sa mga chronic na mucocutaneous na form. And for some systemic infections like coccidioidomycosis, blastomycosis, histoplasmosis, chromomycosis, and the paracoccidioidomycosis. Okay. Now, usually we also use ketoconazole for severe na mga tinea infections, mga dermatophytic infections na severe na dili na kaya ni griseofulvin, ginaga-shift ta sa paggamit kay ketoconazole. And then may nag-mention kagain na tambal siya sa dandruff, no? Yes, tambal po siya sa dandruff na atay Nizoral na shampoo available sa market aside from the tablet sa cream na atay shampoo for dandruff kasi dandruff class na caused by fungal infection. Okay? And aside sa iyahang adverse effect sa mga lalaki, additional side effect is hepatotoxic siya. So that is the reason why If someone wants to have a larger breast size na mga lalaki ha, dili siya pwede gamiton. This is toxic sa liver. Sabi na pag chronic na use. Okay? And then we have the terconazole. This is used, take note, exclusively for vulvovaginal moniliasis. Pag makabatigan mo word na monilia or monilial infection, that refers to candidiasis ha. So vulvovaginal candidiasis. So we have creams na ang iyahang concentration of the terconazole is between 0.4 and then naputay 0.8. Ang 0.4 is ginagamit for 7 days na treatment na ibutang siya sa vagina sa babae. Pero pag you use the 0.8% na cream of the terconazole, this is good for 3-day treatment na period. Okay? And then the itraconazole, what's the natay sporanoxia. I'm not sure. Napamagoy isa ka brand name aning itraconazole. But anyway, we have the sporanox in the market. Just like ketoconazole, this is also a broad spectrum na azole antifungal. This has become an alternative to ketoconazole. And ang iyahang advantage over the ketoconazole is it lacks the endocrinologic effects of ketoconazole, meaning wala siya effect kay androgen, dili siya makakos o gynecomastia. So mo na iyahang ang iyang advantage. And take note of this, itraconazole is our drug of choice for Tinea ongium or the onychomycosis. That's the Tinea infection sa nails, the nail bed. Dahil pag nakay Tinea infection sa nails plus kay mapudpud na imuhang nails. Yeah, mahumok kayo siya na mabali ra siya kalit. Lain siya tanawon. And then, I believe you are familiar with diflucan. This is another azole antifungal, the fluconazole. Pwede siya oral, pwede po siya IV. Kasi aside from being a drug for Tinea infections, we can also use fluconazole for systemic infection, especially the Cryptococcus neoformans, or ano siya, drug of choice siya for cryptococcal meningitis caused by Cryptococcus neoformans. So I don't know if na-mention siya sa inyong microbio, how do we diagnose or how do we determine the presence of Cryptococcus neoformans? We use staining method for this. So just like our gram staining, our acid-fast staining, for Cryptococcus neoformans, we use the Indian ink or the Negrosine ink na ginagamit siya as negative stain, again, to diagnose or to determine the presence of Cryptococcus neoformans. So kanang cryptococcal meningitis, that's the inflammation of the meninges sa brain caused by fungal infection caused by Cryptococcus neoformans, and kanang fungi na makuha nato na siya sa pigeon droppings. So pag namoy mga alaga na mga birds, mo lang na ang delikado din ha, kasi ang ilahang mga droppings, ilahang tae, pwede magkaroon og Cryptococcus neoformans. But kani siya nga fungi is also opportunistic. So dili ka maunsa if okay imuhang immune system. So mostly sa magkaroon ani na sakit is kanang mga immunocompromised like the HIV patients. So kapag ka maka-experience na sila og kanang grabe nga headache niya for a long period of time nga headache, ginatest na sila for the presence of Cryptococcus neoformans. Okay? So naalang tay pneumonics. Pneumonics na siya. O kana lang pag kanang daghan kalapati, lovebirds, kanang mga parrot na mga birds na ginaalagaan, kana siya. Pwede mag-inflame ang meninges sa ilahang brain. Pero daghan man gud tag klaseng reasons nganong magkaroon og meningitis. So naay trauma, kanang maaksidente, mahulog or something, trauma na siya. inflame. Meninja sa brain na kanang covering sa brain. Yan na po yung mga bacterial na mga infection that will cause meningitis. And then kaning cryptococcosis is meningitis gyapon pero fungal infection. Okay? Again, mnemonics na to just to differentiate or classify the azole antifungals kung asa sa ilaha ang ginagamit systematically ug asa sa ilaha ang ginagamit for superficial infection. So, ginagamit ni siya sa pharma na mnemonics. We have the KIF-SIS. KIF means ketoconazole, itraconazole, and fluconazole. Mostly ginagamit sila for both subcutaneous and systemic fungal infection. Mana nga KIF-SIS. And then the MEC is for the superficial mycosis. The miconazole, econazole, and the clotrimazole. Okay, the canesten. Para lang dali nato mabalaan asa ang sa superficial and sa systemic. And we have newer antifungal agents class, the voriconazole and the posaconazole. Mga bago ni sila na mga na-discover na azole antifungal. Okay? Questions? I think that's the last one. Ano, we have echinocandins pa and pneumocandins. Yeah, last attending echinocandins. Wala question. So we have another group of antifungals class, the echinocandins and the pneumocandins. So ang ilahang mechanism of action naman is more on the enzyme 1,3-D glucan synthase. Inhibit nila ni na enzyme that is very important in the formation of glucan polymers naman in the cell wall of the fungi. Ang katong mga previous nato na na-discuss ng mga antifungal, ang ilahang target is the ergosterol, the lipid component of the fungal cell membrane, cell wall. This time, it's the glucan, meaning the carbohydrate na component of the cell wall or of the fungi. So, muna ang target ni echinocandins, especially the enzyme 1,3-D glucan synthase. So, what is the example of our echinocandins? We have the caspofungin. Brand name in the market is Capsebon. Shampoo ni siya na ay shampoo nga Capsebon for the treatment of dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. Kaning seborrheic dermatitis, this one is a severe form. So murag kaspa gyapon siya pero a severe one. Kasi sa imuhang skin mismo there is inflammation and formation of flakes. So murag kaspa ang iyahang nawong. Mani atong ginagamit, we have a shampoo for this, the Capsebon. And the Oreobacidins from the microorganism Oreobasidium pullulan. This is still under the echinocandins, though iba iyahang mechanism of action. Enzyme gihapon iyahang target. Mostly sa mga drugs, enzymes ang target. So just like this one, the Oreobacidins target the inositol phosphoryl ceramide synthase or the IPC synthase na enzyme. This time, an enzyme essential for the synthesis of the sphingolipids naman sa fungi. Okay? So sa sphingolipid ang iyahang target. Okay? Questions? Class sa antifungal. Tama ko, this is the last one sa itong mga antifungals. Please be acquainted sa itong mga antifungals ha. Though dili gyud siya common diri sa Philippines na. Doon ay mga nagafungal infection pero dili siya nga to kadaghan ng nagapalitan ni ng mga tambal sa market. So mostly dito sa mga derma na mga clinic kana gagamit silang mga antifungal. Pero kung naala ka sa pharmacy sa community, wala kayo nagapalit og mga antifungal agents. But you have to be acquainted sa ilaha ha. Let's move on. We have the anti-protozoal. So, humanata sa TB, no? Humanata sa TB, humanata sa fungi. Let's move on to another type of microorganism. This time, we have the protozoa. So, wait lang. Ayan. So, mga anti-protozoal agents. So, I believe nag-discuss po mo mga protozoa sa inyong microbiology. So, I'll just give you some common na mga protozoa na nag-cause of sakit. Mga common pathogenic protozoa. Diba they are nagalihok atong mga protozoa na sila yung mga forms of motility like the flagella, kung sa ganun ng isa lang kabuok, the cilia, yeah. Sa inyong microbiome na siya, no? We have common protozoa like the Entamoeba histolytica, the one that causes amoebiasis. Okay, so dili na siya bacteria ha, dili bacteria ang nagakos sa amoebiasis, dili pud na siya fungi, dili pud na siya virus, it's a protozoa. Again, the name is Entamoeba histolytica. We also have the Balantidium coli. Mahimo na po na kuning assignment sa inyong class kasi mag-review mo sa inyong microbio. So you have to, isa in a table, so I have given the names of the protozoa. You have to describe the condition na ilahang ginakos. Okay? Including their vectors. Kasi some of them na ay vectors. So, carrier. Na sila ay carrier. We have the Giardia lamblia, Trichomonas vaginalis. The Pneumocystis carinii started na belong siya sa protozoa. But now, gilipat ni nila sa fungi kaya ang iyang characteristic is more of a fungi than a protozoa. And then the Toxoplasma gondii na protozoa na makuha nato sa stool sa cats, sa iring. So, na-protozoa din. Now, we have the Toxoplasma gondii. So, please research on sa condition ng iyahang ginakos. And then, the Trypanosoma cruzi and the Trypanosoma brucei. So, naani sila vector. Like si Trypanosoma brucei, if I'm not mistaken, it's the tsetse fly. And then, si cruzi is the sandfly. And then we have the leishmaniasis, daghan tag klaseng Leishmania donovani that will cause the Kala-azar. So please research and again, mag-review mo sa mga ginakos ani na mga sakit. Okay? Ako ato, any paper gyapon ha. Just like what we did sa ato ang mycosis. So what is our first drug? Kasi gusto ko mag-focus sa drugs class than going back to your microbiology. So sa drugs na ta mag-concentrate, review na lang ninyo inyong microbio when it comes to the causative agent and the disease nga ginakos. So let's have the first drug na anti-protozoal, the metronidazole. The most common brand in the market is the Flagyl. So actually triad ang metronidazole aside sa anti-protozoal, not the triad, double lang dayang effect. Pwede siya gamiton as antibacterial. Ang triad na ako ang ginamit is unsa nga protozoal infection ang iyahang ginatreat. So si metronidazole can be used sa Entamoeba histolytica or ang amoebiasis. And then pwede po siya sa trichomoniasis caused by Trichomonas vaginalis and the giardiasis caused by Giardia lamblia. Okay? Questions? Wala? So again ha, pwede po antibacterial si metronidazole. So this will explain its use for like conditions na mga peptic ulcer, kanang ulcer na related to Helicobacter pylori nga infection, not the one nga kanang sa sobrang acid ha. Katong ulcer nga na ay infection sa Helicobacter pylori, pwede gamiton si metronidazole. Kasi again, pwede siya antibacterial agent. Now, what's our problem with the metronidazole? It has disulfiram-like effect. Can you still remember what disulfiram is? Sige daw, be, kaya murag ka itong niagi, dyan ako niya siya gidiscuss sa inyo ha. Unsa ning disulfiram gani? Ako dyan ang hulaton. Hulaton ta ng disulfiram. Kay the same lang ni sila na the same sila nga slide. I discussed disulfiram at the start of this slide. It's a good to. Kamo mag-answer o ako ang manawag? Kamo din mag-answer. Okay, very good, Rosel. This is used to treat chronic alcoholism. Katugong ihatag nato sa patient. Kung gusto nato nga muundang siya inom og alcohol, ihatag nato siya sa patient. Kung sakit iyang ulo. O ingana pod ang sa metronidazole class. Pag ang person naga-take og metronidazole, tapos mag-inom siya og alcohol after, there will be throbbing and severe na headache. So mo na siya ha, inyong tandaan. Pag once na naga-metronidazole treatment ang patient, especially if na siya amoebiasis, dili jud pa imnon og alcohol. Kung di mo gusto mag-suffer inyong hang patient. Mo na siyang ginamin sa disulfiram-like effect. Okay? And then aside from that, it has metallic aftertaste. Makag nag-inom og kanang ferrous sulfate na supplement pag mag-inom ka aning metronidazole. Now, what is the mechanism of action of metronidazole? It's the formation of reactive intermediate that binds to the DNA of microorganisms. So, pag si metronidazole inom mo nato inside the body, it will be metabolized, and ang iyahang metabolite is ma-incorporate sa DNA sa microorganism. So, pag ma-disrupt, remember that's the carrier sa gene sa microorganism, pag ma-disrupt na ang iyahang DNA nga synthesis, it will lead to pwede siya death of the microorganism. So it's both the protozoa and the bacteria. Ang kay metronidazole. So another one is diloxanide, which is used to treat asymptomatic carriers of Entamoeba histolytica. So muna lang ginaingon, di ba? If you have amoebiasis, pwede siya magbalik-balik. So like naayon na ka, di ba mag-diarrhea ka sa amoebiasis. Pwede siya magbalik-balik and mahimo kang carrier. So naan na sa imuhang lawas si protozoa. Wala lang siya naga-cause og symptoms. So, mo na siya ang kanang pwede ka makatakod sa uban even without symptoms ka. Murag karon lang na murag COVID lang na wala kay symptoms pero naa daw kay virus inside your body, so pwede ka mahimog carrier. That is also true for Entamoeba histolytica. You have the presence of the protozoa inside pero you don't have the symptoms. So we use the diloxanide. And then we have the iodoquinol, which can be used for amoebiasis also, for both acute and chronic na intestinal amoebiasis. But iodoquinol is not effective if it's extra-intestinal na amoebiasis. Kasi si amoebiasis is not just for the intestine, sa gastrointestinal tract na mag-diarrhea ka. Kapag kasi amoebiasis mag-travel sa imuhang lawas, we call it extra-intestinal disease. Mugawas siya sa imuhang gastrointestinal tract and sa ubang part sa imuhang body ka magkaroon og symptoms. Now, what is the side effect of iodoquinol? We have here the neuropathy, just like our isoniazid. So kanang numbness or tingling sensation sa imuhang periphery, makagita tusok-tusok. That's the side effect of iodoquinol. Next, we have the emetine and the dehydroemetine, which are alkaloids from the extraction sa plant called ipecac, or ipecac, di ba natin ipecac syrup. The scientific name of ipecac is Cephalis ipecacuanha. So, ano siya ha? Alkaloid from this plant. Now, what naman is the mechanism of action of this drug? This inhibits protein synthesis in protozoal and mammalian cells by preventing protein elongation. So, it's good. It's a good treatment for protozoa. It will inhibit the protein synthesis of the microorganisms. Remember, protein is a very important na molecule inside. Daghan kaayo gamit. Without protein, walay life. Mao na siya nga ginatawag siya central dogma of life. Kana ganing replication, translation, and transcription na process sa inyuhang biochem. Nga ang DNA himuon og mag-replicate siya, nga ang DNA himuon og RNA, we call it transcription. And then ang RNA himuon og protein, we call it translation. We call that the central dogma of life. Without those processes, there will be no life. So without protein, wala po'y life. Pag intake nato ni nga drug, the protein synthesis of the protozoa will be inhibited. So walay protein elongation, dapat manggod mag-elongate ang protein, idugtong-dugtong ang daghan nga amino acids para mudako ang imuhang protein. But our problem with emitin is it can also affect the mammalian cells. So it can also inhibit the proteins of the mammalian cells, leading to side effects. So just like GI distress, and then cardiovascular disease, and neuromuscular na mga effects. So that is the consequence of inhibiting also our cells, mammalian cells to be exact. So I there refers to its indication. Indication na ni emitin ug ni dehydroemetin. So pwede siya ihatag for amoebiasis, pwede siya ihatag for balantidial dysentery. Balantidial dysentery is caused by Balantidium coli. When you say dysentery class, mao na siya ang kanang naidugo imuhang stool. Nakuha, pag naay dugo ang stool, we call it dysentery. And then fluke infestations, pwede gihapon siya. Now, sa fluke infestation class, dili na siya protozoal na infection ha. Flukes are helminths. Nakuha, helminths, mga worms ng flukes. So just like fascioliasis and paragonimiasis, mga flukes na sila. Liver flukes to be exact. So fascioliasis is caused by Fasciola hepatica, and paragonimiasis is caused by Paragonimus westermani. Please review your microbio for this. Ha? Mga liver fluke na sila. Pwede si emitin and dehydroemetin, though anti-protozoal gid sila originally. Kaya pa? Daghan kayo mag-isulod sa inyong brain. Laban Japan. Sige. Wala pa nag-brain error, no? Kaya pa. Sige. Okay, we have the pentamidine, another drug, another antiprotozoal drug, the pentamidine. This is used for pneumonia caused by opportunistic pathogen called Pneumocystis carini. So, di ba na-mention ako kagain na protozoa dyan na siya originally, pero karon they have found out na ang characteristic niya is more of a fungi than a protozoa. So fungi na siya karon, do ang iyahang tambal nabilin gihapon siya diri sa anti-protozoal. So board exam question, yung Pneumocystis carini is the new name. Paki-italize na lang ha, kaya I cannot italize sa akong pag-type. I don't know how. Pneumocystis carini. So that's the new name, but ang iyahadjong original name is this one. Okay? Take note na lang. Sige. So kani siya class is a fungal na karon. Yes, sa assignment. Ito na sa assignment na. Fungal na, fungi na siya karon class, and this is opportunistic. So if you have like immunocompromised, you are immunocompromised, pwede ka magkaroon ani. So this is common. This is a common cause of pneumonia sa ato ang mga HIV patients. Common dyan siya. Common cause of pneumonia to HIV patients or mga AIDS na patient. So pwede na to ihatag si pentamidine as a drug. But aside from that, pentamidine can be used as isa lang, Girovici, isa lang. So again, pentamidine can also be used as prophylaxis. What do you mean by prophylaxis? It's for prevention. So the same thing, prevention and treatment of African trypanosomiasis and visceral leishmaniasis. So kaning African trypanosomiasis is caused by Trypanosoma brucei. Ang ginahimo nato sa pharma ani di ba duha ni sila kabuok, Trypanosoma cruzi ug Trypanosoma brucei. So ang ginahimo nga mnemonics nila si Tom Cruise, Amerikano daw. So the American trypanosomiasis is the Trypanosoma cruzi, and si African trypanosomiasis is si Brucey. Ay, it's double I. O sige, it's double I. It's like the Carini. So nakuha tong American and African trypanosomiasis, Brucey si African, Cruzi si American trypanosomiasis. Actually, it's a sleeping sickness. African sleeping sickness. Ang kanang African trypanosomiasis. Pag makagat sila aning tsetse fly carrying the Trypanosoma brucei, they will have matulog na lang sila. Matulog na lang sila because the effect is on the brain for this. So we can use the pentamidine. Na-mention ba ni sa inyong microbiome? No? Na-appeal niya siya sa inyong discussion? Let me know kung included siya. Okay, very good. So mahimo lang siya review anang inyong assignment. Okay, another one. Another na anti-protozoal agent is the atovaquone. This is an anti-metabolite and this will interfere with the function of the electron transport enzymes in protozoa. So, dito siya sa electron transport chain mag-interfere. So, dili mabuo ang imuhang water, and ang oxygen of water, I mean dito sa protozoa. So, kung sa tao po siya, the adverse effect is gastrointestinal distress. Pero para asa jud siya? This is originally used for malaria. Malaria jud siya originally used ha. But now, ginagamit na siya for pneumocystis carini as an alternative for trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole. Ako siyang isulat. Ha? So, kanang TMP is trimethoprim. Tapos, SMX means sulfamethoxazole. Altogether, we call this co-trimoxazole. Okay? So, do not forget, pag makita ninyo ng TMP SMX, that means combination na siya ni trimethoprim ug ni sulfamethoxazole. But we don't usually use the TMP SMX kasi in the market, we call the drug co-trimoxazole, which is our first-line drug for UTI. Pero ginagamit po si co-trimoxazole for pneumocystis carini. So alternative lang si atovaquone. Okay? And then we have the eflornithine, which can be also used for West African sleeping sickness. Basta West African, that's Trypanosoma brucei gambiense. That's the full name of the protozoa. But if it's specific na West African, kasi pag African lang, it's Trypanosoma brucei. But if it's West Africa, that's Trypanosoma brucei gambiense. So ginagamit si eflornithine for meningoencephalitic stage na sa disease. Pag nagkaroon inflammation sa brain and nagkaroon encephalopathy, sige nagkatulog ang patient ani class, nagamit na to si eflornithine. The problem with eflornithine, it can cause myelosuppression. So masuppress ang function sa atuang bone marrow, leading to anemia, magbaba ato ang red blood cells, and leukopenia, magbaba ang white blood cells, and thrombocytopenia, magbaba sad ang platelets. Kasi those are the blood cells na ginaproduce ato ang bone marrow niya. Masuppress siya because of this drug. Pero tambal siya class for West African sleeping sickness. And then for Nifortimox naman is our drug of choice for South American trypanosomiasis. Muna kong giingon kagaina, brucei is African, cruzi, si Tom Cruise kay American. So siya ang sa American nga sickness. Trypanosoma cruzi. Other name for South American trypanosomiasis is Chagas disease. Okay? our drug of choice is Nifortimox. Okay? And another thing na ginagamit gihapon for Chagas disease is the benzimidazole. So do not forget ha, Chagas disease is South American trypanosomiasis. And the melarsoprol, this is our drug of choice naman for the later stages of both forms of African trypanosomiasis. Kung natin West African na trypanosomiasis, the Gambiense, and the Rhodiense is another one. Wait lang ha. Please review. Ay, kadyo. Text lang. Ana. So the West African is the Trypanosoma brucei-gambiense. And please check if it is South African is Trypanosoma brucei-rhodiense. Oops. Muna siya ang ginaminan ng both forms of African trypanosomiasis. Our drug of choice is melarsoprol. And from the name itself, melarsoprol, you should know na sa structure ani na ay arsenic. So bisag drug of choice siya sa African trypanosomiasis, kailangan na to i-monitor ang patient for signs of arsenic toxicity. Remember, arsenic is a heavy metal. It's a cumulative poison, and it is the poison na ginagamit of the professional na mga killers. Pagka nang ginapoison nila, na arsenic ang ginagamit. Melarsoprol ha, drug of choice for African, melarsoprol. Drug of choice for South American, Nifortimox. Okay? And then we have the sodium stibogluconate. This one is antimonial compound intended primarily for leishmaniasis. So for leishmaniasis naman, whether it is Donovani, katong nagakos og kalaazar, daghang tagklaseng leishmaniasis, I cannot remember the others. Pag leishmaniasis ang sakit, the drug is sodium stibogluconate. And from the name itself also, just like the melarsoprol nga na arsenic, pag maingon kag stibo, unsa ang element nga na ay stibium, SB. Kay kinsang ano ni siya. You call that symbol.
Antimony.
Okay, so this drug naman contains antimony in its structure. Okay ha, melarsoprol, arsenic, stibogluconate is antimony. And we have the suramin, which is a long-term prophylactic agent for trypanosomiasis. So ang uban class kanang mag-travel gani sa Africa, kay daghan man na dito kanang sa trip, di ba? Sa African trypanosomiasis. Daghan na dito. So kanang mga travelers, before na sila mo travel padulong sa Africa, nagainom ni sila daan aning suramin. This is prophylaxis sa trypanosomiasis para sa ilahang pag-travel dito, bisag makagat sila sa tsetse fly, naana sila pang pang counter sa trypanosoma. Ako ha. And then this is also used for prophylaxis sa onchocerciasis. Onchocerciasis is not a protozoal infection. Onchocerciasis is helminthiasis caused by Onchocerca volvulus, the one that causes the wait lang ha, river blindness. Okay, so tama na siya. And this one is carried by the black fly. Okay. Hinapugan ako kung utok sa kumalala sa microbio class. The Onchocerca volvulus is the causative agent. Please i-italics na lang. The name of the disease is the river blindness. And then, dali lang man siya matandaan kay river blindness, it's dark. So, the vector, the carrier is the black fly. Black fly, wait lang. Vector. The vector is the black fly. And another thing na inyuhang tandaan for this, though suramin is used as a prophylaxis, but the drug of choice for our Onchocerca volvulus is di na ko makasulat. Ubalhin na siya. Take note of the river. Oh, why? Kadjot lang ha. Take note of the word na iyahang ginakos. River. So, ang iyahang drug of choice ana kay ivermectin. Manang name sa drug. The drug of choice dyan, ivermectin, pero suramin can be used as a prophylaxis. Okay? Questions, class? Kaya pa? What time is it? I still have time. Okay, still have time. Kaya hindi na i-quiz uma. At yun ako class, ang i-quiz na to ugma kay ano sa antifungal agent sa ha kay basig malipong taan ni daghan kaayo. Antifungal sa ugma. Ayo sa ninyo apila ang anti-protozoal and also the anti-scabies and the anti-pedicular agents. So pamaingon mo og Scabicides class, these are drugs used to control the mite. This is a mite called Sarcoptes scabiei. It is a mite that thrives sa condition nga kanang walay hygiene, poor personal hygiene. Di ka maligo magka-scabies gyud ka. So napoy mga iro nga ginaskabis, no? Kita mo iro nga gikagid, giskabis sila. So, pwede po na maadto sa tao. So again, this is a mite and actually this is class A microscopic na mite. So we cannot see it with our naked eyes, but we can see the small mite with a microscope. And this is how it looks like under the microscope. Okay, that's the Sarcoptes scabiei. Unya, o di ka maligo, if there is poor personal hygiene, maingani imong skin, in short, kagidon ka class. So, dili lang iro ang ginaskabis, pwede po siya sa tao. Pwede siya matakod sa tao, like na kay pet dog, and then nagskabis siya kay poor po ang personal hygiene sa imong iro. Ani mo ginaligo imuhang iro. Kaya sige ka gakos-gakos sa imuhang iro. Matakdan yung ka. And this is how it looks like. Muna siya ang mahitabo. Ipangpaak na ka sa mitin ha, but you cannot see the mite. Kasi again, it's microscopic. Okay? And if the agent is called pediculicide, again, pediculicides refer to agents used para i-eliminate nato, patayon nato ang head lice, body lice, and crab lice. Kuto in short. So napuntay kuto sa body ha, natay body lice. That's what we call the crab lice. So what are our agents for these conditions? We have the benzyl benzoate obtained from the Peru balsam and other resins. So gikan ni siya sa atuang plant material. Pag resins plus, it's a phytochem sa plant. Ginagamit ang benzyl benzoate for immediate relief sa itching kay katol. Remember katol, ang scabies katol, ang kuto katol sad. So this is a relief from itching. Complete cure is achieved with a single application of 25% na emulsion. So kaisa lang ka mo apply, 25% ang concentration. There will be complete cure. But benzyl benzoate can be applied topically as lotion over the entire dampened body except sa face. So wala na to siya ginagamit sa face, but kung like na kay scabies or na ay mga body na mga lice, pwede na to siya gamiton in the form of lotion. So i-lotion siya sa atuang lawas. Again, except sa face. And this one is specific for scabies, the crotamiton. This is available 10% na lotion, topical lang for scabies kung gikagid na yung kakatol na kaayo na scabies. And the pyrethrin is another one. Kani po, you're very familiar with chrysanthemum, right? Bulak sa patay. So naatay gina kuha nga agent sa chrysanthemum class called pyrethrin na ginagamit nato as scabicide at the same time pediculicide. Ha? So pyrethrin, pero ang kanang lysalis, it's permethrin. Pero parehas sila og mechanism of action. Lysalis, you're familiar with lysalis, right? I'm not sure if it's permethrin or pyrethrin. Let me check. Let me check first. Yeah, it's pyrethrin. Tama, tama. This one, brand name sa market is the lysalis. Ano ko gamit sa akong pen, nag-mouse na lang ko, sorry. Oh, that's lysalis class in the market, the pyrethrin. It's from the chrysanthemum. And ang mechanism of action, ana, it's a nerve poison for the kuto. So, ma-poison ang kuto o na nga pwede siya tambal sa mga gikuto na in a form of shampoo ha. Shampoo di ba ang lysalis? So murag tanan man ta ni agi og kuto tong elementary ta na bay exception diri or tanan ta ipang kuto. So kana si lysalis is effective for kuto class. Again, generic name is pyrethrin from chrysanthemum. And then another one nga pediculicide na parehas og effect ni pyrethrin is si piperonyl butoxide. The same thing with permethrin. So lahi itong permethrin, pyrethrin ang lysalis. So another shampoo for head lice is the permethrin. Okay? And the Lindane, the brand name in the market is Quell. I don't know if you are familiar with Quell. Brand name na niya ha, butangan na itong R. So, chemical name for Lindane is gamma benzene hexachloride. Our problem with Lindane, mo nang dili po siya pwede himuon nimong adlaw-adlaw nga shampoo kasi may shampoo ta na Quell na pud tay lotion na Quell. This is neurotoxic, not just dito sa scabies o sa kuto, but sa body mismo nato. So, dili siya nindot for our nerve cells. So, I think dira sa ako mag-end para di tanin yung mag-information overload. Next meeting, we will start with our synthetic antibacterial agents. So, dili pa siya dili pa mga antibiotics, mga synthetic pa na mga antibacterial agents. So we'll talk about the quinolones. You're familiar with them, mga quinolones na to, mga levofloxacin, mauna siya, mga ciprofloxacin. Those are antibacterial na mga synthetic, so you don't call them antibiotics. Okay, so daghan-daghan pag yun ni siya class, pero mag-end sa ta kay mag-overload ta. So today we have discussed antifungal, and then what's the next antifungal? Anti-protozoal and the scabicidals, mga scabicides na to, mga pediculicides. But my quiz tomorrow is mga antifungals lang tanan. Wala pa'y appeal si scabies o si protozoa. I hope class that is clear. Questions?